Hi, this is Cousin Russ. Um, this is a follow-up to a series that I've been doing on managing the data error report in Foundry GeoMaker 2017. I want to give an update because I've done the work today based on the, the series of blog posts that I've done on this topic. And I thought it'd be worthwhile to spend this couple more minutes on this whole project. Clearly, this started, and this is what I normally do. I identify a system of whatever it is I'm trying to do, file naming conventions, handling of various aspects of the program, but identify a system, test it, and I certainly did that yesterday or over the weekend on the managing the data error report. I identified a system that I thought it would work. I tested it and I shared it with you, and I've now backed up a little bit and revised my whole system of managing the task list or to-do list. I implemented the managing data error report system. I implemented that. And as I was doing that, I remembered one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I could do was to resolve a data error report. I knew that to resolve it, I'm going to need a record to do that. So I looked at what I normally do in handling a record that I might find on somebody. And I looked at my task list that I would see, or a to-do item for a specific person when I had that record on the screen. And I realized that I had too many categories that might be listed with that individual. So I backed up a bit, and what I am going to talk about now is my whole task list or to-do list. So I'm back at revising my system again, and I have tested it out. I identified the changes that I would make. I revised it, and I want to show you what the outcome of that is. Oh yeah, keep it up. I still don't have any new data error reports. So, and I did check that. I did check that today. So I'm going to keep up with it just so I don't have to go spend a whole bunch of hours trying to review the data error report. So as long as I keep that clean, that piece of this process is golden. And run a report. I do it on a daily basis, at least at the end of the day or somewhere in the middle. It doesn't matter when. It's just that I do it daily because I don't want that system to get out of control. So here's an update on my system. I started with a data error report management that I have blogged about. That's where I started. And again, when I looked at how I was going to resolve those data error messages, I knew that I had to find a record, and I was going to do it in the people workspace, the person view. So I made some adjustments, a couple of adjustments in the plan workspace, task list, or to-do list. And when I started, I had 70 categories in the task list. And that they all met specific needs. I've made some adjustments in how I do things. And so I did a little work on the categories, and I reduced that number of categories down to 61. Still may sound like a lot, but it's very useful to me to have a category so I know exactly what I might be looking for in a very short description of what the issue is. But I did consolidate, and I did reduce by consolidating and think about how I had done it over the past couple of years, dealing with categories. I was able to reduce the number of categories by 9, which is a good thing. The content of the information is not lost. I started out with 5,122 tasks. That's where I started this project, I guess, last month. And yesterday I was up to 6,000 tasks. Sounds like a lot. It is, but it's spread across 12,000 people. So it's not like I have to do them all now. And the other thing that I learned in getting here and testing this new process out of my mind is that when I had set this up, I was focused on clearing some of these things from the planned workspace. I can still do that because I have sorting capabilities and I have the 61 categories. So I can still do that. But I was up to 6,000 tasks. I am now down to 5,884. I added a bunch of tasks, and that is true because I've got some place names that I still need to resolve. I've only got a couple letters through the alphabet in the place name, so I've still got a lot of work to do. I expect that number of tasks to go up over 6,000 probably when I get back to looking at my places workspace, which is actually where this whole problem or project started. One of the things that I recognized that I had done, and it was not by accident, I do this a lot, where I want to keep track of the hints. How are the hints from Ancestry in the Family Tree Maker 2017? Well, I had recorded in this database that have been working with, and I have not been trying to find record hints. So I have not been looking at hints, but I've looked at 83 hints, 83 good hints, and an additional 3 hints I ignored because they were the wrong person. That has been my normal results, a high level of confidence on the hints, because I rely on the hints. As I've said before, the Ancestry hints are far better than my searching for records. So I'm able to give numbers like this because of the way I record and handle the to-do list. So let me just spend a minute here, and I'm going to bring Family Tree Maker over onto the screen so you can see it. I'm going to go to full screen, and let me just spend a couple minutes here in the planned workspace so you can see my task. You can see I only have one here, and I have one task that's my to-do list with no content. If I go into the filter task list, I have a drop-down menu that says filter by task categories. This is where that 61 categories comes in. And there's a pop-up window that has all of my task categories. And if I want to see one, I just put the check mark. Now, since I did this yesterday in the previous recordings, I'm going to look at the data error report. And I'm going to get rid of the task that's here. So the only thing that I will see this time is those categories that are in the data error report. Now, what you're going to see is the medium priority for all the categories are going to be those data error report items that I have not resolved. Medium categories, I got to do them. It's my to-do list. Now, if I scroll down, scroll down, we're going to get down to the low priority, and there's a check mark. So I'm about halfway through cleaning up the data error report, but I've identified them all. I know what I have to do. I just want to point out what I do. I believe that I showed you during the previous recordings, but the text in this task description column is the error message from the data error report. Now, if I bring this one up, I'm going to blow it up on the screen so you can see it a little bit. I know you probably can't read all the text, but that's okay. What I do is the text of the data error report. Once I have addressed that issue, I put a space dash space resolved in all caps so it stands out at me, and then space dash space how I resolved it. I had a problem, and it turned out to be a data entry issue. I had a typo. So and then once I have resolved that record, I make it low priority and I put a check mark in complete. So I know that everything in low priority are data error reports that I have resolved and how I resolved it. So now the other thing that I haven't spent a lot of time on it is that there's a way to sort. Now I have it sorted, and I usually keep it sorted by task category. But I also can sort by who is it for, a person. So because the medium categories are all for people, I can sort by people. For an example, there's 3 different data error reports for this name. It happens to be a DNA match. I just happen to know that, and I don't know what the name is. I believe I know who it is, but I haven't found a record. But there's 3 data error report messages. The person's sex is unknown. The date of birth occurred after his mother or father died. The individual has no parents, no children, no spouses. So there's something wrong with that person in my database. So if I wanted to address it, I can click on Go To, and I went to the profile for that person. So I have the information. I know that this was a DNA report because I know the name and I know who it is, but I haven't found a record with the name because it's a private tree that's managed by somebody else. So I don't have access to the name. And because of the nature of that DNA, I don't have the relationship between he and his ancestors. I know who it is because I know but I haven't found the documentation that I need to resolve any of these errors. And this was a file that I imported. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do, and I tested it and then implemented, is that if I merge 2 files, I want to know what is the file name that I merged into the master file that I'm working on. So I created a fact before I merged that file into this file. I wanted the file name, so I know where this information came from. That's why I'm able to say that this came from a file that I brought in that had my testing of DNA results. But the good news is I have a data error report that reminds me that I need to find out who it is. Now, the sad news is that he doesn't have any hints. He doesn't have any hints because I don't have the data in there. I will find it, and I will probably be able to find it and determine it when I find who his mother and or father is. I know who it is, but I have to find a record to prove that. I'm not going to arbitrarily add his mother or father. By the way, it is he, but I don't have a documentation behind that. Again, if I wanted to go after somebody who had more than one data error report, I can sort by name. It's by first name based on the profile that's in Family Tree Maker. That I've tried to figure out whether that's a good news or bad news. And at this point, it doesn't matter because again, I'm going to work off the hints. And just so you know, that this file has 10,855 hints in the Ancestry member tree. So I don't have to worry about finding information. The hints are already there. If I go to the people workspace and I go to the home person, you'll see that there's some hints already floating around for me to work on. So we're back here at the end. I developed a plan. I tested it. I have implemented it. I then was able to step back based on the learning for that testing. I have decided and figured out and shared with you now how I handle my entire task list. I have tested it and it's working. That doesn't mean that I won't go back and revise it again. I may find a way to do it better, but I've spent a couple of minutes working on how this would work for me. Will it work for you? I can't answer that question. It works for me. Thank you very much. Have a great day.